Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us here on the network where we cover the most interesting live trials and legal stories. Let's get started. Okay, so again, you have to imagine that video played some role in the jury's determination, but what kind of role? Joining me again is Dr. Carol Lieberman, but also here on set is trial attorney Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, great to have you here.
Thank you, Jesse.
We haven't had a chance to talk about this verdict yet, so first let me start your reaction, and do you think that this video played a crucial role in the jury's decision?
Absolutely. I think that the jurors, all they really had to examine was the video of the incident actually taking place and then the defendant's statement to see what actually was in his mind and what he actually intended to do. Just examining those two, I think, led them to the verdict. They didn't really need to listen to the other factors that were played for them throughout the trial, like the other witnesses.
Were you surprised by the verdict?
I was concerned. I was concerned when the jury sent out a note that they wanted clarification on the law that didn't make sense to them. So I was surprised that after the judge actually just reread the charge to them, that in less than an hour they did come back with a verdict. But I was concerned that they were actually going to hang or whether it was going to be an acquittal. But it is the right verdict.
Doctor, let me ask you this. A big part of that police interrogation tape and throughout the course of this trial was the defendant lying about what happened? Because we talked about earlier, if you look at the video, there appears to be McLaughlin taking a step back. Now, he said consistently throughout in that police interrogation tape that he felt McLaughlin was taking a step forward. There was a back and forth about whether he was lying or, as a result of such a traumatic experience, people perceive things differently. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I don't think he was lying because at that point, remember, he wasn't arrested at the beginning. I mean, yes, they had him in for questioning, but the sheriff decided not to arrest him. And so I don't think he thought that he was in that much danger of being arrested. He thought, you know, stand your ground, self-defense and so on. He didn't really look very worried. And he said in that clip, he said, I was blindsided. That was part of it, too. That's what I was talking about earlier, that you know, it came out of the blue and already he was in this emotional state. And yes, he thought that the man was coming towards him. So, you know, maybe it had to do with his perspective being on the ground. I don't know, and his emotional state. But that's how he saw it. He didn't seem defensive in this video. I don't think he was lying.
Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to hear from the defendant on the stand. He chose not to testify. So really what this jury had was to look at this video and take those words for what they said about them. And so let's just go back to a little bit more of the defendant's recorded police interview where we just heard more of what the defendant had to say after the shooting. The whole case really, you could argue, is between the push, that time between the push and when he takes that gun out and fires. That really is an important time frame. So let me ask you, Bernardo, when do you think he made the decision to open fire?
I think he made the decision the moment he decided to take that gun out. I think that the moment he decided to take that gun out, he decided that he was going to shoot. He wasn't just taking it out just for it to actually be seen. But to him, he was thrown on the ground and he decided, I'm going to take this gun out and I'm going to shoot.
It's interesting that he wasn't charged with murder, not saying that he had an intent to kill, but he did have an intent to shoot. Doctor, your perspective about when this man had that intention to open fire?
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think that the significance is that it was right after he was pushed to the ground. So whether or not, you know, he took a step back, Mr. McLaughlin, and whether or not the defendant perceived that he took a step back, by then it was too late. It was being pushed to the ground that made him decide to shoot. And, you know, one thing that was an interesting aspect that really kind of got glossed over in the trial, I don't think that the defense attorney made enough of this, was that Mr. McLaughlin was on ecstasy. And they had an expert trying to say, oh, well, it was just a little amount of ecstasy, and no, that wouldn't have made him seem more aggressive or frightening or whatever. And the defense didn't really counter that well enough.
Well, let me ask you, Bernarda, because the MDMA that in his system, there was a conversation about does it make one more aggressive or not, and they called Dr. Daniel Buffington to say that there was an idea that it can make one aggressive. Your thoughts on that, the MDMA, because at the end of the day, The defendant didn't know that was in the victim's system, but does that even matter? Because we're looking at the actions of the victim. So your thoughts?
Jesse, to me, it didn't matter at all that he had MDMA in his system, because the reality is that Drejka did not kill an unarmed man because he knew he had ecstasy in his system. Drejka didn't know he had ecstasy in his system, and there were no signs that Drejka didn't say, oh, his eyes were red or his eyes were green. He was coming to me as a monster. You know, words like that, then maybe, you know, he was actually on drugs. But you never heard Drejka in his statement say, I thought he was on drugs and he was coming after me. That's not the reason he killed him.
All right, so we got two different kind of perspectives here. We're trying to get Judge Washington back with us as well to get another perspective. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a lot more to break down in this case. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.